Tracer is among a few heroes that received some stealth nerfs or hidden buffs, simply because there were changes made to them indirectly. Let's talk about them in today's video. With every patch in Overwatch, there are some changes that are unforeseen by a lot of people. We're going to try to nail those down here today, given that we've had some time with the patch on the PTR server, and I've discussed with some other players what these changes mean. Let's start with Tracer in today's video. Now, Tracer is someone who's been very powerful for very long. Her solo kill potential is through the roof, and her solo carry potential is up there as well. This means Tracer is someone I expected nerfs for, but not in this way. You see, with Roadhog being nerfed, you'll see him less in games, and the first nerf to Tracer is less ult charge because Roadhog used to be a huge source of it. You can get your ult extremely quickly by just dumping a few magazines into a Roadhog. You can also take Roadhog out of the fight longer than he takes you out of the fight. You used to be able to bait out his hook and blink away, and then he's kind of useless for the next 8-ish seconds, and you're still in the fight because you have a lot more blinks than he does hooks. So in the end, Tracer kind of won out on that trade. Free ult charge as well as taking Roadhog out of the fight. But now, things have changed. With less Roadhog in the game, Tracer can't charge her ult nearly as much, which isn't very good because people like d.va aren't as easy to charge ult off of. d.va has armor, defense matrix, and mobility. Winston has mobility, armor on top of his health, a little bit of it, and his bubble he can put down. Zarya's hitbox is much smaller than most tanks, so you can't just lay into all three of these heroes like you could lay into Roadhog, meaning much less ult charge for you. So what if the enemy team does have a Roadhog? Well, this is where Nerf 2 comes into play with Tracer, because Roadhog actually deals with her better than he did before. It's not ideal, and I think Tracer still benefits from the free ult charge more than anything else, but it's definitely harder for Tracer than it was before. Even after the nerfs, Hog can still one-shot Tracer when he hooks her, and now that he has an extra shot in his magazine, it means there's a lot less downtime for his hook combo. Given that he's reloading less, there are less situations where he hooks Tracer and doesn't have ammo, so he can more often hook her now and actually get the kill. And on top of this, he can also one-shot Tracer without even hooking her if she's close enough. She still has such low amounts of HP that one primary fire or one alternate fire, depending on your range, will kill her. So now that Hog can shoot faster, it means he's a bigger threat to her. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, Roadhog's head hitbox size was decreased too, which means, once again, even if he is in-game, Tracer can't get as much ult charge off of his big fat head, because it's now like normal sized. The final nerf to Tracer was the mccree buff, actually. With mccree being in more games now, simply because he's better than he was before, Tracer is already going to have more problems, because mccree can usually take out Tracer with a flashbang. But there's an actual direct counter now to Tracer with mccree other than flashbang, and it's your Deadeye. Tracer is so low on HP that the changes to Deadeye mean that he can take her out right away with the Deadeye. As soon as he hits Q, he's going to lock onto Tracer very quickly and hopefully be able to get the kill. As Tracer, this means whenever you think mccree has his ultimate, you need to know where he is, because if he uses Deadeye from behind you and you can't get to a good cover in an instant, he will kill you and swing the fight pretty heavily in his team's favor, because as Tracer, like I said, your solo carry potential is huge. So if he takes out your team's carry, which is the Tracer, it's gonna spell bad news for that fight. As Tracer, you can also just recall immediately when he uses Deadeye, but we all know that's on cooldown a lot of the time, and even if it's not, you're wasting a really powerful ability. You're going to be out of the fight for like the next 8-ish seconds, and you're not going to be able to do as much with just 3 blinks or however many you have currently, meaning Deadeye is going to be a pretty powerful counter to Tracer, so watch out for it. Speaking of mccree, let's talk about a hidden buff he received. You're probably thinking, all of the buffs he received were very blatant, we know what he got, but there's one more thing he can do now that I bet you didn't know. mccree's ultimate reloads his ammo, and now that it locks on faster, it also happens to be able to be cancelled faster. Sure, you'll lose all your ult charge in the process, but you can basically instantly reload now as mccree just by hitting Q or whatever it is on console and mashing it until you can cancel it again. Here's a clip on screen of what I'm talking about. It's a pretty unique mechanic, and, you know, in certain situations, I don't doubt it would actually be better than using Deadeye. Jedi because you're getting a free 6 rounds in your magazine, and in critical situations, sometimes you can't afford to stop moving and start glowing like McCree does. So this could be pretty interesting and pretty fun to use. Try it out. Hanzo isn't feeling as well as McCree this patch. There's a nerf that he got directly that Blizzard didn't mention or hasn't seemed to acknowledge yet. A while ago, they made it so if you shoot his ultimate into the wall, his dragons will start coming out of the wall immediately. There'd be no delay, and the arrow wouldn't go through things. But they reverted that this patch. Not sure if it's a mistake or not, but now when you shoot Hanzo's Dragon Strike, the arrow will still go through the wall like it used to, and the dragons will come out after a set distance. This is a nerf for a lot of reasons. For one, if someone is right behind the wall you're looking at, you can't just immediately surprise them with dragons. And it means D.va's defense matrix, as well as Genji's deflect, can block this ability through walls, which doesn't seem really fair to me. Tell me what you guys think. I'm pretty sure this was just a mistake, but Blizzard hasn't acknowledged it, and a lot of people have recognized it, so it's actually a surprise that this one went live. Now let's take a second to talk about Reaper. I'm sure we all know he was buffed, or he now has 20% lifesteal, but I'd also like to talk about what this means for other heroes, as well as how powerful Death Blossom is now, because it's crazy. Death Blossom deals 170 damage per second to all enemies in its radius. That plus 20% lifesteal means Reaper is going to be healing for 34 health per second for every person around him. If that doesn't sound like a lot, let me take this one step further. If there are 2 people around Reaper when he uses Death Blossom, he heals for 68 damage per second. That means he's healing more than Mercy can heal him. If there's 3 people around him, he heals for over 100 damage per second. That's more than Ana can do. And as you go past 3, well, I'm sure you get the point. Reaper heals a ton during Death Blossom now. I use 3 and 2 as my examples because honestly, most of the time I feel like Death Blossom is used on, maybe 2 to 4 people, a lot of the time 3. So you can expect Reaper to be healing 100 damage per second on the average Death Blossom. This plus any heals you're receiving from an outside source, Ana or maybe a Zenyatta who puts his orb on you, plus any Zarya barriers means you're going to need a direct way to deal with Death Blossom. You can't just expect to turn around and shoot him. It's not going to work anymore. You will die. This means when the enemy team is running a Reaper, it's a pretty good idea to have a surefire way of dealing with his ultimate, otherwise you will inevitably get team wiped. Let's talk about a few heroes that are able to do that. The first one is Ana, and she can deal with Reaper in 2 ways actually. When he uses his Death Blossom, the most obvious way would be to sleep him, and then the Death Blossom is over and your team lives. Hooray. But your sleep dart might be on cooldown and it's not always the easiest thing to hit, so you can also throw your grenade at Reaper, and this will prevent the incoming healing he receives from his passive. This won't necessarily be as good as sleeping him. In fact, it won't be nearly as good, but it may give your team the edge it needs to kill Reaper and turn around and shoot at him because he won't be healing nearly as much, and you provided immediate damage with your grenade. So that's the first somewhat counter to Reaper. Just make sure, try to land the sleep dart. Don't rely on the grenade. Some of these don't require as much discussion. McCree can flashbang him out of Death Blossom. D.va can use her defense matrix to entirely eat it. Widowmaker and Hanzo can both insta-kill him, although it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, and I wouldn't rely on it because Reaper may be jumping, strafing while he's in his ultimate. Not the most reliable solution to a Death Blossom, but it is there. Roadhog can hook him out of Death Blossom. I guess there is one saving grace to Roadhog this patch. And a more unconventional solution I have seen is Lucio or pharah booping Reaper just completely away from your team as they back away from him. This one requires you to be quick, and you have to do it right away, much like all of these, and it isn't as guaranteed, but it can work. So just keep that in mind if you're playing pharah or Lucio, and you know the Reaper's got a Death Blossom. If you save your boop, your knockback ability, it will help you greatly. And then finally, Reinhardt uses his shield, and Death Blossom doesn't go through it. So yeah, I'd say use D.va or McCree as your direct counters to Reaper, and just make sure you have those cooldowns ready to go when you think he has his ult. But if you weren't able to directly counterpick the Reaper, like you were defending and he switched an attack, keep in mind the other ones I mentioned, like the Lucio and the pharah and the Ana tricks that you can do to shut down Death Blossom. The last nerf we're going to talk about today is to pharah Mercy, that cancerous combo you see in like every game at least once. McCree now deals with them them so well. His new Deadeye can lock onto them and force them out of the skies really quickly, or just kill them because there's often not a lot of cover nearby for them. So just keep that in mind. It's a pretty nice trick. Huge thanks to Haste for sponsoring today's video. They offer a program that's in a free beta right now that will reduce your ping and improve your connection to Overwatch server. So your hit scan heroes are going to feel better, you're going to experience less lag spikes, your roadhog hooks will land more frequently, and it should help your gameplay out a fair bit, especially if you have a sketchy or shoddy internet connection. Try it out for free, link will be down below. As always, hope you didn't hate today's video. If you didn't hate it, be sure to not leave a dislike down below, and instead click on yesterday's video, where a Bastion main actually dies. For real. In real life, he died. Maybe. It's a funny video, I put a lot of work into it. Check it out, link will be down below and at the end of the video. See you guys all later, have a good one, Lone Hawk out.